Let me welcome you to this new video of Madoka Magica, and today we will be diving into the critical criteria of a girl to form a contract with Kyubey to become a magical girl. Before we dive into the deeper series, we first need to understand the primary reason and criteria Kyubey uses when making a contract with the girl to turn her into a magical girl. Two crucial factors determine this: karmic potential and emotional availability, specifically how easily Kyubey can manipulate someone into accepting the contract, particularly if they're emotionally unstable and likely to fall into despair and becoming a witch. Let's begin with the first point, this being karmic potential. According to Kyubey, a magical girl's power is tied to her karmic destiny. From his statement, especially about figures like queens and messiahs having more karmic weight, it's clear that karmic destiny is linked to the person's potential influence on the world and those around them. This karmic energy allows them to make more complex wishes and ultimately becoming far more powerful magical girls. For example, Queen Isabelle, the Queen of Friends in the Madoka Magica spin-off manga of Jane the Arc, had immense karmic weight as a monarch. Her wish was powerful enough to steal Kyubey's own powers and create her own magical girls army. Madoka Kame, on the other hand, started off as a relative normal girl, society average and with little worldly importance. However, as Homura repeatedly resetted time to protect her, Madoka's karmic destiny accumulated. Each loop centered more and more around her, causing her karmic potential to skyrocket. Eventually, this karmic power was so great, her final wish allowed her to ascend to godhood. So, to summarize the first point, Kyubey can only make a contract with a girl who has high amount of karmic destiny, meaning if they do anything either now or in the upcoming future with their life that would change society as a whole, or the world or the universe, which is why Madoka was so powerful. Let's cover the second factor, this being the manipulator factor. As the name implies, this is the factor where Kyubey looks for a girl he can easily manipulate into convincing them to become a magical girl. One of the characters in Magia Record who best explains Kyubey's hunting patterns is the history professor Tezuke Satomi, who is one of the few knowledgeable male characters in Magia Record, and the only male character who mostly knows more about magical girls and Kyubey's than all the other magical girls combined. And he is also a crucial figure in the events of the series, and if you want to argue, the main reason why Magia Record even happened in the first place. Anyways, he explains that magical girls are just like any other girls. Every magical girl struggles with life-side worries. They make a contract to escape their troubles. A girl who suffers from illness or from an accident has no breathing room to think about the wish, as none of the magical girl knows that they will become witches after becoming magical girls. And Kyubey stops at nothing to ensuring a girl will make a wish, and often searches for girls with a pure heart and easily manipulated nature. And most of these girls are preteen girls. In conclusion, Kyubey is actively searching for girls who believe everything he says and have a shitty enough life or situation to believe that a simple wish for a miracle could solve everything. Since preteen girls are at a delicate stage of life, caught between hope for the future and despair over the present, a tragic sweet spot for Kyubey's contracts. Yes, I know, that sounds incredibly wrong and disgusting, but that is Kyubey. Wrong and disgusting. Kyubey himself explains in both the original anime and manga that girls at this age generate the most emotional energy. This is a time where they experience a flurry of first times in their life. First love, first heartbreak, first dream about the future, and often their first exposure to the harsh reality of the world, like noticing their familiar struggles or starting to feel inadequate in their own skin. Here are a few examples from the Magia Record universe. Kirika Kuri wishes to become someone who could constantly change herself to please her girl Oriko. Momoko Tagumi feared she was too tomboyish and wished for the courage to confess her feelings to the boy she liked. Ashley Taylor wished to visit Japan out of a love for all things kawaii. And Himiko Mayo wished to cure her father's illness so that he could continue supporting her family. And the most important one, Sayaka Miki wished for her crush Kyosuke to regain the use of his hands so he could play the violin again, since she truly loved this guy. By the way, fuck this guy. There is a running joke in the fandom that Kyubey only targets LGBT kids, and while that may seem humorous at first glance, there's some truth in this observation. Queer youths, especially in Japan, often face immense social pressure and limited freedom to express their identity. Many struggle with loneliness, repression, or shame. Emotion Kyubey is more than happy to weaponize and explore. Anyways, ironically, Kyubey seems to support same-sex relationships, mostly because in his experience they end up in emotional tragedies, which is perfect for him, since he can easily harvest energy from them. This, however, raises an interesting question. Would Kyubey allow a boy to become a magical girl if that boy wishes to become a girl? Well, that's a topic for another video, and a question to all of you. Would he or would he not? Write it down in the comments. Anyways, after this question, let's make a case study by checking out who Kyubey would target the most. between Sayaka or Hitomi. Since we gathered a lot of evidence and example of who Kyubey targets to become a magical girl, let's make an example and a case study by looking at Sayaka and Hitomi. They are both at similar social position, friends with Madoka in the same class and both in love with the same guy, Kyosuke. However, one girl is extremely rich and therefore has most likely the most amount of karmic destiny, while the other one is from a middle class family. However, Kyubey specific targets Sayaka in nearly every timeline, both in the anime and in the first two timelines of the PSP game. And before you ask, no, it's not because Sayaka is bisexual. If that's the case, Hitomi would also be targeted, since she has a massive crush on Homura in the extra route, and showed more interest in girls than Sayaka, and was way open about it, and ironically more accepting with it as well. But there exists also another reason, this being that Sayaka is way too idealistic and way too naive. A feature Homura even herself stated is deadly to have when you are a magical girl, since this leads to bloody despair. Even Gen Urichi, Madoka Magica's creator, has commented that Sayaka's heroic ideals were intentionally flawed and tragically misguided, especially considering that she didn't understand the ending of Inception. That should be a red flag on its own. Okay, jokes aside. And while she was financially stable because of her middle house household, she did have a wish in her life she would probably give her life to. So instead of contacting Hitomi, Kyubey contacted Sayaka. It was also quite easily to convince Sayaka to make a contract with Kyubey, since Kyubey met and interacted with many, and I mean many artists in his lifetime, both male and female, and knows how suicidal all of them become when they lost the thing that made them special. Seriously, that was an interaction they had in the PlayStation Portable version, and it was extremely interesting. Anyways, Kyubey knew that Sayaka was too idealistic and would happily sacrifice herself to fix Kyosuke's hand because of the fact that she truly did love him, and that she would convince herself that it was a selfish wish, something that will definitely not backfire. Hitomi, on the other hand, doesn't qualify as easily as Sayaka in Kyubey's eyes. First, she's wealthy and financially secure, so material desperation isn't a factor. Second, she's emotionally stable. Even after being witch-kissed and nearly driven to suicide, she returned to school calmly, as if to say, it's just another Wednesday, my dudes. And third, she's smart enough to be suspicious of Kyubey, like seeing throughout his manipulation, and would call him out on it, similar to what Mami did when she first noticed Kyubey's presence before the accident. Seriously, she was so scared of Kyubey's presence that she thought that he was a weird stalker or something like that. Seriously, that shit is canon. In short, Kyubey would have had to actively ruin Hitomi's life to force her into making a wish, which is inefficient when someone like Sayaka is already emotionally primed and ready. God, that sounds so wrong. Since Kyubey doesn't like to waste his time, he prefers emotionally unstable girls with limited options, rather than rational, well-supported individuals who have a bloody stable life. So in conclusion, Sayaka was the perfect candidate. Which brings me to my final thought. If karmic destiny is so important to creating a magical girl, as well as how easily Kyubey can manipulate the girl, by either how desperate they are or how easily and pure-hearted the girl is to believe Kyubey's lies, why did Kyubey allow Homura such an OP wish, considering how non-important she was in the first timeline? I'm sorry, but it was the truth. I do have a theory and the answer to that, but that will be covered in the next video, so please be hyped for that. And in the meantime, please like, subscribe, write a comment down below, and subscribe to my channel. Goodbye for now.